thank you to the audience for being here to listen to us talk about artillery for an hour or so. And also I should probably thank Roger for giving me the perfect lead-in to talk about the second battle of, which I believe in French would be referred to as Villers Bretonneux, but I'm just going to call it Villers Bret, just to make it easier on myself. So this presentation, I will cover the tactical actions of the 5th Australian Divisional Artillery during the Second Battle of Villers Bret, in order that, having heard about the strategic picture, you might now be able to get a sense of how artillery operated tactically during the spring offensives. It will not be possible to provide a detailed account of the entire battle in 20 minutes, and given that this is an artillery seminar, the focus will be on the action of the artillery during the battle. In so doing, I hope the wider tactical narrative will emerge. But I want to give you a sense of what the artillery knew, when they knew it, how they reacted, and then how they fit into the actions of the 24th and early 25th of April 1918. To begin with, I think it is helpful to sketch out a picture of the 5th Australian Division, the composition of its artillery, and some of the personalities involved. So the 5th Australian Division was commanded by Major General Joseph John Talbot Hobbs, and had been since December 1916. Talbot Hobbs was a gunner, having commanded the 1st Australian Division's artillery from the first years of the war, and incidentally my previous artillery seminar presentation was on this period, and it was looking at Talbot Hobbs during the period of when the AIF reorganised in Egypt at the start of 1916. His Commander Royal Artillery was Brigadier General Alfred Joseph Bessel Brown, an experienced artillery officer who had not only been serving in the AIF since the start of the war, but who had also deployed to South Africa as well in the Second Boer War, although not as an artilleryman. At the time of the battle, Bessel Brown had under his command 2 of his own brigades, the 13th and 14th Australian Field Artillery Brigades, the 5th Australian Divisional Artillery Column, and 2 additional brigades of the Royal Field Artillery, the 150th and the 298th. So on the 21st of March, the beginning of the offensive period, the 5th Australian Division and its artillery were in Belgium, to the north there, holding the front line just north of Armentières. 2 days later, the division was given a verbal warning order that they would be moving south. By the 26th of March, the division, excluding its artillery, had been relieved, and it began to do that southward move. The division's artillery remained in place for a few days until it too was relieved. The division was allocated to the 3rd Army Reserve to be placed in the line where necessary and sort of floated around down south. Elements of the division were inserted into the line from the River Somme to Villers Bret in early April, and were responsible for the defence of that sector and that part of the line. So on the 21st of April, the division shifted north slightly to allow the British 8th Division to assume responsibility for defending the town, as you can see down below. So they just moved north, and the 8th Division just sort of slotted in there in front of Villers Bret. So adjusting to this slight relocation, the 5th Division's gunners registered and calibrated their guns, sorting out their SOS lines and positions, and the counter-battery lines of communication. That's the SOS line that they drew out. If infantry sent up the appropriate signal, a barrage would come down on that line at a certain sector as required or as requested. Now, on the 23rd of April, another artillery brigade was added to the division's order of battle, and I should point out there that so you have the front line, and then the circles are roughly where the 4 field brigade batteries are, sort of clumped together there. The 13th and the 14th brigades were in the middle, the 150th to the north and the 298th to the south. But then, as I said, on the 28th of April, another brigade was added, which was the 16th Army Brigade Royal Horse Artillery, and it was to function as a mobile reserve. It just sort of slotted in at the back of the division there. This brigade actually had a relatively interesting history. It had formerly belonged to the 1st Indian Cavalry Division, and after the dissolution of its renamed successor, the 4th Cavalry Division, it was one of several unattached horse artillery brigades that could be allotted to divisions where necessary, so it was thus allotted to the 5th Division. At this time and throughout the division, it was suspected that there would be a local operation by the German army against Villers Bret. Captured German soldiers were saying as much, and troop movements could be observed in the area. On the 23rd of April, the division's frontage was bombarded in depth with HE and gas by German artillery. The 5th Divisional Artillery Headquarters diarist noted that an attack on Villers Bret was expected during the early morning of the 24th of April. And, sure enough, at 3:45 a.m. the following day, German artillery laid down a heavy barrage along the British and Australian front from the Somme southwards. This barrage included significant counter-battery efforts by the German gunners, but the 5th Divisional Artillery batteries had taken steps to mitigate the risk of sustained heavy casualties to such action. Bessel-Brown had instructed them that their choice of positions for the batteries was of utmost importance, that they were not to be clumped together and should be sighted in depth. Seemingly undaunted, the Australian field artillery weathered the storm, with shelling dying down about 6 a.m. As part of the response, the Corps Level 9th and 65th Brigades Royal Garrison Artillery were carrying on counter-preparation barrages in the 5th Division sector. While the gunners could tell that no infantry attack was directed at their front, by 7:30 a.m, the artillery was beginning to receive reports that the 8th Division to their south had been pushed out of Villers Bret, and that the German assault had included tanks, and they ended up being correct on both counts. The penetration of German infantry and armour to the south was exposing the right flank of the 14th Australian Infantry Brigade, and by 8:30 a.m, calls started to come in for field artillery barrages on the SOS lines to the division's south. Sensing the danger, at 8:50 a.m, Bessel-Brown informed Talbot Hobbs that he had ordered the 16th Brigade Royal Horse Artillery to cross the river and get into action. He told their commander to get into contact with Brigadier General Harold Pompey Elliott, commanding the division's reserve brigade. So the divisional artillery was told that German infantry was advancing from Villers Bret north to Fouloy. You can see the red arrow there indicating their route of march. At one point, the artillery south of Fouloy became anxious, and they heard a rumour that suggested that the Germans were gaining the line of the railway northwest of Villers Bret, which would place the artillery under direct observation, but this proved untrue. By 9:30 a.m, Talbot Hobbs had personally informed Bessel-Brown that the 14th Brigade was trying to form a defensive flank to their south that would, amongst other things, protect the 298th Brigade, Royal Field Artillery. Its batteries were later described as being in a precarious situation throughout the morning, but the 14th was able to form that flank with also remnants of the 8th Division. Through the rest of the morning and into the early afternoon, the artillery sought information about the situation, wanting to know what was going on and what their role was going to be. At 11:27 a.m, Major Holton, the Divisional Artillery's brigade major, reported that the position of the 8th Division, that street fighting was proceeding in Villers Bret and that a counterattack was being organised. Again, both these things were true. At 3:22 p.m, Bessel-Brown was given the direction by the 8th Division that all heavy and field artillery could be turned on Villers Bret, which effectively informed him that the town was lost. However, a minute later he was told by the divisional headquarters that Elliott's 15th Brigade would be making a counterattack, that the 16th Brigade Royal Horse Artillery, which was now under Elliott's command, would assist. The message was passed on to the 4 field artillery brigades in the division. Although the 5th Divisional Artillery was not given any specific direction as to what part they would play in this counterattack, they expected to be providing a barrage east of Villers Bret to cut the line of retreat of the German infantry now occupying the town. At 7 p.m, the Corps Artillery Commander directed Bessel-Brown to cover the old front line at 600 yards in front, down to the Wafusset-Abencourt-Villers Bret Road. At 7:40 p.m, the 5th Divisional Headquarters directed Bessel-Brown, from dusk until midnight, artillery will fire bursts of fire 600 yards east of the old line. This was passed on to his 4 field artillery brigades with 0 hour set for 10 p.m. It was important to note here that the divisional artillery was not being instructed to provide a preparatory bombardment or a creeping barrage in support of the infantry, both due to the lack of time to prepare and the desire to retain surprise. So, as directed, the artillery put down a barrage on the SOS line from 10 p.m. to midnight, but at 12:22 a.m. the 15th Brigade requested that their artillery fire be maintained. This was passed on to the divisional artillery through the senior staff officer, but it appears only the 298th Brigade and the 9th Brigade Royal Garrison Artillery, so those brigades firing on the 15th Brigade's protective flank down south, were ordered to do so. So the artillery remained on the SOS lines and periodically searched back 600 yards. By 1:14 a.m, Bessel Brown sent a message through to Elliott and the 15th Brigade asking whether they still needed the artillery on the SOS line because, quote, ammunition supply is not inexhaustible. It was not until just after 4 a.m. that the 15th Brigade informed the divisional headquarters that they were holding the old British front line and that their artillery fire could slacken, which it did, probably to the relief of the exhausted gunners. Now, these gunners had been a small part of the wider action, in which 2 Australian infantry brigades had encircled the town during the night. While it was not executed perfectly, the counterattack had nevertheless been able to regain much of the ground that they had lost the previous day, and it took the further efforts of the 58th Division and the French Moroccan Division on the 26th of April to complete the work of restoring the line. During the day, the 25th of April, the 5th Division's artillery fired protective barrages in front of the 15th Brigade at their furthest line of advance. As early as 3:40 a.m. that morning, so even while the battle was still going on, the 5th Division's Divisional Artillery Brigade Major had been warned about the probability of German counterattacks during the next day, which would possibly start at dawn. No attack came immediately, but at 2 p.m, there was a push by German infantry towards the 15th Brigade. Their approach was observed, and a half-hour barrage by the 13th Field Artillery Brigade, the 65th Brigade Royal Garrison Artillery, and the guns of the 20th Divisional Artillery Group scattered this attack. This happened again with massing German troops at 3:15 p.m, with the same reaction and the same result. Of these actions, the 5th Australian Division's historian wrote, quote, "A splendid artillery barrage completely broke the attack. Thanks to the excellence of the artillery work, the tired infantry was not called upon to sustain the burden of further hand-to-hand fighting." This was the work of the Australian artillery at 2nd Villers Bretonneux. The British artillery in the 8th Division sector provided the most direct support to the Australian infantry, putting down a standing barrage on Villers Bret at 0 hour, which then lifted at 11 p.m. To a line east of the town. The main achievement of the 5th Divisional Artillery was to maintain continuous fire throughout the day on the 24th of April, under threat of counter-battery fire themselves, and to react to the changing situation. And on the 25th, their main achievement was providing the protection to the captured Australian line. The division's field artillery answered SOS requests, and heavy artillery was often called down on suspected reports of German infantry massing, particularly in the mid-afternoon of the 24th of April, as the threat of German infantry driving north from Villers Bret into the exposed southern flank of the 5th Division developed. The artillery's role at Villers Bret may not have been as spectacular as other engagements, but its work during the battle demonstrated how responsive and powerful it could be if called upon. With the emphasis on set-piece operations, particularly in 1917, it is easy to forget that the artillery in this era could be responsive and fire relatively complex barrages without the lengthy planning processes of large engagements. This example of how artillery was used in support of dynamic manoeuvre operations is something that should still resonate today, as many of the challenges faced by Bessel Brown's gunners would not be unknown to Australian artillery in the 21st century. Thank you.